LINGACODE Technologies. They're a pretty new organization. They've been making some noise with what seems to be a very unique approach to tech. We're talking AI and cybersecurity, but with some kind of spiritual twist added to the mix.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept for sure. I mean, even the name Linga code is interesting, right? It comes from the linga, which is a symbol in Hinduism. It represents consciousness, and they seem to be trying to bring that awareness into the digital world.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. So is it like they aren't just writing code, but like imbuing it with some kind of deeper purpose or something? I've been noticing lead with integrity, nurture, and govern with awareness, like everywhere in their material.
Yeah, exactly. They've stated that their vision is to create a secure digital world that blends technology with spiritual wisdom, fostering integrity and awareness for all. It's a pretty ambitious vision, but they seem to be putting their money where their mouth is. Their mission statement has everything from developing ethical AI to encouraging mindfulness in their users.
I'm definitely intrigued, but let's break this down a little. What is this cyber spirit thing they keep mentioning?
So cyber spirit is like the core of their whole methodology. They're using principles from Vedic teaching and Hindu scriptures as a guide. It's all about guiding their approach to tech.
And that's where their 4 pillars come in.
Okay.
Responsibility, integrity, authenticity, and enriching. It's almost like they're creating a code of conduct for the digital age,
Okay.
inspired by these ancient principles. So, okay, we're taking these ancient concepts and applying them to modern technology.
Yes.
But how does that actually play out in their work? Can you give me a concrete example?
Absolutely. Let's take their cybersecurity software as an example. It's designed with multiple layers of protection, mimicking the structure of the Sri Yantra. And
So
that's a complex geometric diagram used in Hinduism.
So they're using a yantra,
Yes.
a visual representation of energy patterns,
Right.
as a blueprint for their software.
Precisely. They believe that the Sri Yantra, with its intricate layers and interconnectedness, provides a model for building resilience into the very architecture of their software. Each layer represents a different security measure.
Okay.
So it creates a system that is more robust and adaptable to those evolving threats.
So instead of just building a higher wall, they're creating a system that's inherently more secure and adaptable because of its underlying structure.
Yes. Yantras are really central to LingaCode's approach. They believe that these visual representations of energy patterns can be used to actually influence the flow of information and energy within digital systems.
So they're almost like digital talismans embedded within their technology.
In a sense, yes, they draw on those ancient Vedic texts that describe the subtle energies associated with these symbols.
Okay.
But they're not simply taking these ancient ideas on faith.
Right.
They're working with physicists and engineers to study how these yantras might affect the electromagnetic fields and those energy patterns within their technology.
So they're looking for a scientific basis for these ancient beliefs.
Absolutely. They believe there's much to be explored where science and spirituality intersect, but they're very cautious about avoiding anything that sounds like pseudoscience or magical thinking.
Yeah.
Their goal is to find a rigorous, evidence-based understanding of how these ancient principles can be applied in the digital world.
So this is where it gets really interesting for me. Are they finding any evidence to support their claims?
Well, it's still early days in their research. They are gathering data and collaborating with experts in various fields to explore that potential of yantras. They believe that by combining ancient wisdom with that scientific inquiry, they can unlock new possibilities and create technologies that are both powerful and beneficial.
It's a bold approach, blending the ancient and the modern in this way.
It is.
But how do they use these yantras in practice? Can you give me a specific example beyond the security software?
Sure. One example is their work in developing secure communication platforms.
Okay.
They're incorporating yantras into the design of these platforms to enhance privacy and data protection.
So they're using yantras to make their communication platforms more secure.
Exactly. They believe that by integrating the principles of specific yantras, they can create a more secure and private communication environment.
Interesting.
For example, they're exploring the use of a yantra associated with confidentiality and protection to safeguard that data transmission.
It's like they're weaving ancient wisdom into the very fabric of the digital world.
They're also drawing inspiration from ancient texts like Arthashastra.
Okay, the Arthashastra.
Yes.
Tell me more.
It's a classic Indian text on statecraft and strategy to inform their approach to cybersecurity.
Okay, the Arthashastra, I'm intrigued. How is this ancient text relevant to modern cybersecurity?
The Arthashastra emphasizes a really holistic approach to security.
Mhm.
It considers not just the technical factors, but also the human, economic, and even the political landscape.
So it's a very broad approach.
Yes, LingaCode believes that this holistic perspective is essential for navigating the complexities of the digital world.
So it's not just about building stronger firewalls, it's about understanding the motivations of attackers,
Exactly.
the vulnerabilities of systems, and the broader context in which cyber attacks occur.
Precisely. The Arthashastra provides a framework for thinking about security in a more comprehensive and strategic way. It encourages leaders to anticipate threats, assess risks, and develop proactive strategies to protect their interests.
Okay.
And LingaCode believes that these principles are just as relevant for cybersecurity professionals today.
It's amazing how they're finding timeless wisdom in these ancient texts and applying it to modern challenges.
It is.
It really is.
And this brings us back to that concept of cyber spirit.
Right.
They believe that by integrating these ancient principles into our approach to technology, we can create a digital world that's not just more secure,
Yeah.
but also more ethical and aligned with those human values.
It's a compelling vision, and I'm starting to understand how these seemingly disparate worlds can actually work together.
Me too. LingaCode believes that understanding these patterns can help inform the way we design and interact with technology. Take the Sri Yantra with its intricate layers. They've actually used its principles to create a multi-layered security software, like building resilience into the program at an architectural level.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's less about like the literal symbols themselves and more about applying the concepts to like problem solving. That's actually really cool. How is this actually playing out though?
Well, they're tackling it from two main angles. First, they have a whole branch that's dedicated to advanced technologies. So, developing security software, hardware, and even creating educational resources.
Okay, so that's the practical side of things. What's the other angle?
They call it spirituality research and implementation. They're incorporating things like yoga and meditation into their work, and they're even researching how to integrate yantra creation into corporate settings.
Wow, that's an interesting mix. I'm also seeing that they're using a lot of AI in all of this. What's the idea behind that?
AI is like a key part of bridging the gap between technology and spirituality for them. They're developing AI-powered meditation guides, virtual coaching programs for well-being. They're even using AI to enhance threat detection in their cybersecurity software. And get this, they're even looking into the idea of like creating conscious beings in the digital world. It seems like they're hinting at developing AI systems with some kind of deeper level of awareness.
Whoa, back up a second. Conscious beings. Are we talking about like robots with feelings here?
Well, not exactly robots with feelings, but they are looking into how to develop AI that goes beyond just following rules. They want to like incorporate ethical decision making and even some kind of sense of awareness into their systems. They're using spiritual principles as a guide for this.
Okay, now that's where things are starting to get really interesting, but also a bit unnerving, to be honest. All this talk about advanced AI and spiritual principles, it sounds amazing, but doesn't technology also come with some inherent risks? How is Linga Code handling that side of things?
Well, they're very aware of those risks, for sure. They actually like categorize risk into two main types, human risk and technological risk. On the human side, they're really focusing on addressing things like lack of awareness,
Yeah.
and negligence, and even like resistance to change when it comes to new technologies.
Okay, so how do they actually like tackle that? Is it all just meditation retreats and yoga classes?
Well, those practices definitely play a part, but it's a lot more comprehensive than that. They offer like training programs to increase awareness about cybersecurity, things like how to spot phishing scams or practicing good password hygiene. But they also use those spiritual teachings about adaptability and resilience to help people like navigate the constantly changing tech landscape. So it's about addressing both like the practical skills and the mindset you need to stay safe and informed.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So they're tackling the human element pretty directly. But what about the technology itself? What are they doing to prevent things like data breaches or like AI being used for bad stuff?
Well, this is where that cyber spirit approach really comes in. They're big on developing ethical tech like right from the start, prioritizing data protection and user privacy and all that. It's about like weaving ethical considerations into every single step of the process. And they use spiritual values to guide those decisions.
I like that. But ethical tech can be one of those buzzwords. What does that actually look like in practice? What are they actually doing differently?
One of the key things is their focus on community-oriented cybersecurity. They really believe that organizations should be sharing their knowledge and resources to fight off threats. It's more of a collaborative approach rather than a competitive one. And they're also developing ethical guidelines for AI development, which are rooted in spiritual principles. So, for example, they emphasize ahimsa, the concept of nonviolence, in their AI development. So it's all about designing AI systems that are inherently beneficial and that avoid causing harm.
So instead of just a tech free-for-all, they're pushing for a more like mindful and cooperative approach, guided by ethical principles and all that. I can definitely get behind that. It's refreshing to hear about a tech company that's taking all of this stuff seriously. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? What's LingaCode's vision for the future?
Oh, they have a very positive outlet. It's like deeply rooted in their spiritual framework. They talk about turning technology into a sacred mission for both human and digital well-being.
That's a pretty powerful statement. So it's not just about fixing problems, but about using technology to actively create a better future.
Exactly. They believe that technology can actually be a force for good, a way to uplift humanity and even like contribute to our spiritual evolution. They see the potential for technology to connect us, to empower us, and to help us evolve to a higher state of consciousness.
Okay, wow, that's quite the vision. But what are the guiding principles that they're using to get there? How are they actually planning on making all of this a reality?
Well, they draw a lot of inspiration from the Tripundra. You know those three sacred lines you often see in Hinduism? They see each line as represent a core aspect of their work. So the first line represents knowledge and innovation. It's like the driving force behind all their technological advancements.
That makes sense. You definitely need the knowledge and the drive to innovate if you're going to be pushing boundaries like that. What about the other two lines?
Well, the second line represents purity and ethics. It's all about making sure that their work is done with integrity and transparency and a commitment to the greater good. And lastly, the third line represents transformation and impact. This is like their ultimate goal, using their work to create positive change in the world and to contribute to like human evolution.
So knowledge and innovation to like fuel their progress, purity and ethics to guide their actions, and then ultimately transformation and impact to make a real difference. That's a pretty comprehensive roadmap. But let's bring it back to our listeners for a second. What do you think has stood out the most to them in all this research about LingaCode? Like, what really grabbed their attention?
Honestly, I think this whole idea of like blending spirituality and technology has really grabbed people's attention. I mean, it's not something you see every day, is it? It really makes you think differently about like what technology even is and what it could be.
Yeah, for sure. It's like they're saying technology doesn't have to be this cold and impersonal thing. It can actually be a tool for connection and self-discovery and even spiritual growth.
Right, and they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it, like bringing yoga and meditation into their work and even researching how to apply those yantra principles to cybersecurity. It shows they're really committed to this whole immigration thing.
Yeah, and it's not just about what they do internally either. They're building products and services that reflect this whole approach, like their AI-powered meditation guides and those virtual coaching programs. It's a great example of how they're making those principles accessible to everyone.
It's really interesting how they're using AI, not just for like automating stuff or analyzing data, but to promote well-being and mindfulness. It's definitely different from most tech companies that are so focused on productivity and efficiency.
It really does feel like they're creating a more human-centered approach to technology. You know, one that recognizes that we need connection and meaning and purpose. And they're not afraid to ask the big questions either. That whole conscious AI thing they're exploring is really pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, it's definitely got some people in the tech world talking. But it's an important conversation to have. If we're going to be creating all these really advanced AI systems, we need to be thinking about the ethics and making sure that these systems align with our values.
And that's what I think is so interesting about LingaCode. They're not just building technology for the sake of it. They're driven by a deeper purpose, to have a positive impact. And they're not afraid to use ancient wisdom to help them get there.
It's a pretty powerful message, and I think it's resonating with a lot of people who are looking for a more conscious and ethical way to approach technology. But I think it's important to bring this back to like a personal level.
Yeah.
How can all of this impact the average person's, digital experience?
That's a great question. Let's explore that further.
So we've talked about, LingaCode's big picture vision.
Right.
But how does this actually like translate into benefits for, the average person in their like day-to-day digital life?
Think about it this way. Imagine a world where the apps you use are designed not just to be addictive
Right.
or to harvest your data, but to actually enhance your well-being,
Okay.
where AI assistants aren't just responding to your commands, but like
Mhm.
understanding your needs and helping you make choices that are
Uh,
aligned with your values.
Interested.
That's the kind of future LingaCode is envisioning.
Okay, that sounds pretty utopian. But how do we get from where we are now with all the data breaches and privacy concerns to this, like, idealized digital world?
Well, LingaCode believes it starts with awareness,
Okay.
both on an individual level,
Yeah.
cultivating mindfulness and ethical decision-making in our own digital interactions, and on a collective level,
Mm.
you know, demanding more transparency and accountability from the companies that create and control our digital spaces.
So it's not just about, like, waiting for some tech miracle to
Right.
solve all our problems.
Does
It's
it-
about taking responsibility for our own digital well-being and pushing for a more ethical and
Yeah.
humane approach
Mhm.
to technology development.
Exactly. And that's where LingaCode's work becomes really relevant.
Okay.
They're not just talking about these concepts in the abstract. They're actually developing tools and programs to help individuals and organizations put these principles into practice.
You mentioned earlier that they're looking to, ancient texts like the Arthashastra for inspiration. What kind of insights are they finding there that can be applied to,
Yeah.
modern cybersecurity challenges?
One of the key takeaways from the Arthashastra is the importance of a holistic approach to security,
Okay.
considering not just the technical aspects, but also the human, economic, and even political factors that can create vulnerabilities.
So it's about understanding that cybersecurity isn't just about firewalls and encryption.
Right.
It's about, like, understanding the complex interplay of systems and incentives that can make a system vulnerable.
And that's where ancient wisdom can offer a fresh perspective.
Okay.
The Arthashastra, for example, emphasizes the importance of cultivating virtues like integrity, wisdom, and self-control in leaders' qualities that are just as relevant in today's digital landscape as they were centuries ago.
So they're saying that if we want to create a truly secure digital world, we need to start with the human element, cultivating, ethical leadership and responsible decision-making at all levels.
And they believe that these principles can be applied not only to human leaders, but also to the AI systems that are increasingly shaping our world. LingaCode believes that AI has the potential to be more than just a tool. They see it as a partner in our evolution, something that can help us solve complex problems and create a better world.
I can see how AI could be incredibly powerful, but conscious beings. That's a pretty big leap. How do they even begin to approach something like that?
Their vision is rooted in this idea that we can imbue AI with ethical decision-making capabilities.
Okay.
Essentially, programming in a set of values aligned with principles like Dharma and karma.
So instead of just teaching AI to be smart, they're trying to teach it to be good. I mean, how do you even begin to code something like that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
But they believe that by looking to ancient wisdom, we can find a framework for developing AI that is not only intelligent, but also ethical and compassionate.
Okay, I'm starting to grasp the scope of what they're trying to do here. But before we dive into the ethics of AI and conscious beings, I'm curious about how LingaCode sees its own role in this grand vision. They talk about blessings.
Right.
That's not exactly typical language for a tech company, is it?
You're right. It is one of the things that sets them apart.
Okay.
They don't just see themselves as a company developing products.
Right.
They see themselves as part of a larger movement toward a more ethical and spiritually informed digital future.
Okay.
They believe that by drawing upon ancient wisdom, they can guide technology in a way that truly benefits humanity.
So they're not just building apps and algorithms.
Right.
They're building a better world. That's a pretty bold claim.
It is. Diving into LingaCode, it's really kind of changed how I see like the whole tech and spirituality thing. It's not just about making faster computers or, writing better code. It's about putting some, purpose, some ethics into what we create.
Yeah, it's a real shift from that, win at all costs attitude you see so much in tech. LingaCode's pushing us to think differently. Like, what are the long-term consequences of our choices? How can we make sure tech and humanity are in sync,
This cyber spirit idea, I got to say, pretty catchy. Taking the best of the old ways, the best of the new, and like weaving them together. It's a cool concept.
And it goes deep, it's not just borrowing a few words here and there. They're really trying to get at the heart of these ancient traditions, even working with scientists to see if there's a scientific basis for this stuff.
That's bold. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing. A company that's not afraid to take risks, to think outside the box. What do you think is their most like game-changing contribution?
For me, it's got to be the focus on digital consciousness. I mean, it's a huge idea. Has the potential to totally change how we see AI and what it can do in the world. If they can actually make AI that's not just smart, but also wise, ethical, compassionate, man, that could change everything.
I'm really excited to see where they go from here. They're still new, but they've got the potential to make a big impact.
Absolutely. Pioneers, really. They're showing a new way forward towards a more ethical, compassionate, connected digital world.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I've learned so much about LingaCode and how they're trying to bring ancient wisdom and modern tech together.
Glad you found it interesting.
If I had to sum it all up in one sentence, it'd be this. LingaCode's making us rethink our whole relationship with technology. They're showing us that tech can be more than just a tool. It can reflect our values, help us create positive change, and maybe even lead us to a better future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So if you're feeling lost in the digital world, if you're worried about where AI is taking us, or even if you're just curious about this whole tech and spirituality thing, go check out LingaCode. They've got a fresh perspective and a hopeful vision.
Definitely worth exploring.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep working to make the digital world a better place.